Hey.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm awesome.
You always have great answers. Every day you're awesome, you're fantabulous, you make up new words. Someday you should ask me.
I know, we should do it that way.
We should flip it. Well, let's have an opposite day someday.
Yeah.
Where you start with, hey, how are you? And I'm like,
Carter created opposite day when he was a kid.
That's true.
Remember? Everything
Yes.
was opposite.
Okay, so I'm super excited for today.
I know. This is going to be exciting.
I know you know a little bit about what we're doing because you had to know a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But for the audience's sake, today we are doing a new format of an episode, which is a lot of fun. I kind of think about it as systems thinking in real life. Like
IRL.
And so what basically has happened is we have somebody who's reached out with a real world issue that they're struggling to think through using systems thinking generally. Mm-hmm. We could call it almost, it fits in it's the personal part of professional. It's somebody who's dealing with something personal with their own family. And we are very lucky. Some of our
most important complex issues that we humans face.
Definitely. The most important and the most persistent.
Yes, exactly.
Right? With that introduction, we will start by, we have a wonderful guest. Mm-hmm. His name is John.
We're going to call him John. And you're going to see in this format that we kind of protect the identity of the person so that they can speak freely about whatever it is that they want to bring to the...
We want people to be comfortable.
Yeah.
So anyway, I will welcome John.
Yes.
Welcome, John.
Welcome.
Hello. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you. What brought you here? What are you thinking about? What's the issue on your mind that you're trying to think through?
Yeah, I have used systems thinking to help me with some real life problems. And thanks to your, working with you and your methodology, that's been really helpful for me. But I feel like I'm at a bit of an impasse with a particular problem. And this problem probably going to resonate with a lot of parents. I'm a parent. Mm-hmm. And this is to do with what our daughter eats and or doesn't eat. So it's around that. And I would say, and I'm really trying not to exaggerate, I want to try and be as honest as possible. I would say about 80% maybe of what she eats is processed or ultra processed foods. You're talking about eats a lot of bread. They say man can't live on bread alone. I would challenge that. A lot of bread, and it's not, it's the whites.
Yeah.
Bread with all the goodness taken out of it. It's a lot of pasta. It's a lot of and even the pasta's like carbonara, which has got a lot of, bacon and a lot of cheese, or it's like an Italian sausage pasta. And, so that is a lot of that. A lot of chips, a lot of pepperoni.
Yeah.
For me, there's sort of two things. There's the fact that, okay, she's probably not getting the nutrition she needs, which is one concern. And I can kind of put that aside to some degree. But probably the thing that concerns me the most is more the health risks associated with processed and ultra-processed foods, whether that's diabetes, whether that's heart disease, whether that's cancer. And it feels like the research is pretty clear on that, right? And so, and obviously how all of that, now we understand, is so sort of inextricably woven with mental health, right? And all other parts of her life, not just mental health, other parts of her physical health, her sleep, her mood, all that kind of, all those sort of things. So it feels very systemic, obviously, what we eat. Yeah. In the past, I've changed my mental model around certain things. Like maybe I've changed my mental model around how she behaves at the dinner table and acknowledging that's just my way of seeing things, and I can do that. But with this feels like, for me, like non-negotiable. Like what you eat impacts so much of your life. And I suppose for me, ultimately, if I was going to kind of boil it down, I would say there's two things that I'm feeling. There's fear for her well-being, and then I also feel like hopeless, because I just don't know what to do. We don't know what to do, my wife and I, both. Yeah, so that's in a nutshell.
Yeah, this is I mean, I wish I could say you're the only one suffering with this because it's such a huge problem and it's such a systemic problem. And in many ways, parents are on the front lines of, an amazingly systemic thing, right? I mean, these kids are being influenced by all kinds of, I mean, not just kids, all of us are being influenced to eat in certain ways that are all the things you mentioned, not good for you, not nutritious, all these kinds of things. So we all suffer from this, but especially kids who don't have the maybe some of the life experience. So so it sounds like the issue is kind of like balancing all these different concerns, as well as probably are there concerns about like the parent-child relationship kind of things as well?
No, yeah. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because, naturally, in the context of what she eats, yes, because, it's 3 times a day. And so it's 3 times a day you're sort of, 3 times, or maybe I'm not always at home, but when I am at home, I'm usually having some kind of a reaction, that's kind of comes out of the fear or the hopelessness that, probably shows up as frustration, probably shows up as irritation, and I would say, one of her gifts is she's sort of highly sensitive, so fine detail processing. So whether that's visual, auditory, also emotional, she'll pick up on your eyebrow quivers. She knows. So, and so there is often a dynamic that occurs in around meals because of how I feel about it, right? Which is bubbling up as frustration and irritation, and it can make for sometimes, not always, but a tense dinner, or at minimum a sort of when no one's saying much, maybe I've gone a bit mute.
Interesting.
And I'm probably also we're cooking multiple things every meal, so there's that sort of dynamic. Now you're stressed because you're in the kitchen, trying to get her carbonara exactly right. Like exactly right.
Yeah.
And you're trying to cook yourself something else at the same time.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. How old is she?
8.
8 years old. And are there other kids, or is it just you, your wife, and her?
Yep, just a family of 3 and golden retriever. But
okay, interesting. Okay, so we have a lot of things going on here. You mentioned like most of them, and we have obviously the dynamics between the 3 of you. Are suffering as a result of this. So we can add your wife in here, and you've got dynamics here, and you've got dynamics here, and dynamics there, and so this little system right here is a complex little system, right? There's lots of different dynamical things going on. There's tension. There's having to cook multiple meals, which makes things infinitely more complex in the kitchen, and
very much so.
And then of course there's all the parenting fears and all that kind of stuff, and all the things you mentioned. So, and frustration, irritation, long days work, dinner, and busyness in the morning, and all that. I'm assuming all those things are the case. Do you do a sit down meal every day?
Dinner time, yes.
Dinner time, but not breakfast? Yeah.
Breakfast is usually just no, not breakfast. Sometimes, but mostly I would say no. We're usually sort of trying to get ready, and we get up earlier and eat earlier and that sort of stuff, yeah. Sometimes, on the weekend, lunch.
Yeah, lunch on the weekend. And breakfast is just kind of like a take it in the car, kind of running breakfast, or is it more?
It's us probably usually just eating earlier.
But not together, meaning it's not like a cooked meal.
No, it's kind of fend for you. Well, not fend for yourself exactly, but yeah, usually three separate meals, 3 different people. Yeah. I mean, we might end up sitting around the table together. There's been more of that recently. I've changed my schedule slightly to accommodate more of that, but not like dinner time. Yeah,
so there's a tremendous amount of research on family meal time.
Yes.
And so I'll just say, as an aside, which isn't necessarily the solution to what we're talking about, but as an aside, the degree to which you can create at least 2 family meal times a day, if that's possible, but certainly 1, that will give you the space to solve the problem. Obviously, that can be very difficult for people, and things like that.
Yeah. The other thing, if I can speak into that research, is they have found that just one meal a day with the entire family over a child's lifetime decreases aggression behaviors, all kinds of academic outcomes. So you're on the right track already, making time for that dinner. And also, there's a lot of research that this is the time when a lot of child development happens, is at family mealtime.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of just took some notes down here, but we can kind of create objects out of them, right? So you have the processed food issue leading to your concerns about health risks, and that's a part-whole system that has many parts, leading to your concerns about nutrition, which is a lesser concern for you for various reasons, but that has some parts. You've got at least 3 times a day, or at least 1 time a day, but something like up to 3 times a day, you're having dynamics that often are tense or frustrating or irritating. That also includes this part of having to cook multiple things. There's the various perspectives that you have on it being kind of a non-negotiable as a parent. So there's the parenting side of things, your fears, your hopelessness. So those things kind of factor into your framing of the issue. And I'm sure your wife has similar issues. And so what you end up having is something that is truly systemic, right? You have the medical issues associated with it. You have the food issues. You have the societal issues. You've got the family dynamic issues. You've got different perspectives, hers versus yours as a parent, different levels of understanding of life and things like that. So you've got a lot of different things going on here. What I would say is I'm very interested in this it feels non-negotiable thing as a mental model.
Well, for example, let me give an example which was negotiable for me. That didn't seem negotiable at first, and this is work that I did with you, which was very helpful. So, for example, and we'll keep it in the same area, so meal times with the family. Our daughter moves around a lot, just bouncing around. That's just sort of her personality and how her body probably self-regulates. Let's say that, right? And I just sort of grew up in a family where at the table you didn't bounce around, right? You behaved yourself. And whether I did or didn't, I don't know, but that was certainly the expectation, right? And so I'm noticing this a lot, and I'm getting frustrated because that's my mental model in that moment is you should sit still at the dinner time.
Yeah.
And I'm also getting frustrated because I really love my vintage mid-century modern furniture, and I'm seeing like my chair getting a pounding, right? So, but I'm realizing that my anger, my frustration is not what's happening. I mean, maybe to some degree with the furniture, but okay, it's furniture, who cares? But really my frustration is being caused by my mental model that a kid should sit still. So I changed my mental model and said, well, what happens if a kid doesn't have to sit still? So what could I do then? So then we thought about, what about a bouncy ball? So a bouncy ball, she can bounce around the dinner table, and we save the vintage mid-century modern chair from being pounded, right? And so sort of, and now it's kind of win-win, right? So I changed my mental model. That felt negotiable. Like what I believe about what's acceptable at dinner table in terms of behaviors feels negotiable. But highly processed foods or ultra processed foods, from what we understand about them, for me, that just to eat that feels non-negotiable because it's like a safety issue. And yes, maybe it's not immediately visible in the moment, but if we were to speed that up over 30 years, it's equivalent. I feel maybe this is an exaggeration, but perhaps a helpful analogy is to say I feel it's like the equivalent of letting your child run into the road. Well, what are you going to do? You use protective use of force, and you're going to throw yourself in the way or grab them or do something to stop them from doing that. That feels non-negotiable because it's about that. It's about their health, about their wellness. And so I'm afraid that highly processed or ultra processed foods is sort of over time the equivalent of letting your kid run into the road. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
It's a good analogy.
Like you said, building off of your mental model is critically important here. Not because you're going to undo the non-negotiability of it, right? Because you're absolutely right that this is a health and safety issue in the long run. But because what you want to do is be able to act and have agency in the moment that doesn't create more problems for the problem that already exists. Correct?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think how I'm reacting, now what's coming, literally just hearing you say that something is unlocking in me. How I'm reacting is I'm reacting out of my mental model of non-negotiable, which translates to in the moment at the dinner table.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
So what I want you to focus on is this thing right here. This is a little picture of the meal. And you said that meal trends towards 80-20, 80% processed, 20%. And you're saying, your mental model is like, this thing right here cannot happen. That's non-negotiable. I got to do something about that thing. What I want you to see is that if you try to do something about this thing, you're going to increase the problem. Now, hear it out for a second.
I'm tracking.
Yeah. So what we want to do is think about, well, what is it that we want to accomplish? What's the goal? The goal isn't to change this thing right here at tonight's dinner. The goal is you have some period of time where you have influence, right? Which let's just say generically is like, 18, but it's really far after 18 because they're going to be around, but 18 years old. So you've got, 10 years or more that you can work on this issue. And what we want to do is make incremental progress towards her making these choices for herself, making better choices in adulthood. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, it really does. And when you, it's a really helpful diagram, because if you take 10 years, times it by 365, times it by 3 meals a day, there's a lot of opportunities.
There's a lot of opportunities.
Definitely.
And that's exactly what I want you to see. This thing that you're getting frustrated by is actually your opportunity. It's an opportunity to teach, but you can't teach it all at once. She can't absorb it all at once, and she has too many influences, right? I mean, think of all the influences. Even she goes to school every day, and I'm guessing at school every day, they're mostly serving processed foods. Everything that she's being exposed to is mostly processed foods. Everything online, everything in commercials, everything on social media is processed foods. So she has all these other influences. On top of that, she has the influence of being human, that when we taste these things, it's a little bit like a drug, right? So then these food companies know this, right? So what we have to do is see the long game. And the long game is, how do I get her, I, the parent, get her to start thinking these things on her own? To start having these frustrations, fears, and concerns that come from her agency and her action rather than from the outside, from you. Does that make sense? And your job is to guide her in the process. So sometimes I talk about this as mirroring. And if we think about two mirrors, so this is a mirror and this is a mirror, and this is how the situation starts. There's you, this is you, and there's her. This is her. And there's her in the mirror. Does that make sense?
Yes.
10 years from now, hopefully a lot sooner, we want it to be her and her in the mirror. Because we want her to look in the mirror at what she's eating and say, wait a minute, I probably shouldn't be doing that. That's not good for me. Just like you do and I do every morning and every day. We say, oh yeah, the fries sound good, but it's not. I'm not going to like the long-term effects, right? Here's the problem. When you're standing here, see this guy right here, this is you. Yeah. When you're standing there, what she's going to do is she's going to see you in the mirror. You're always going to be in the mirror. And she's going to think that she has to do things because you're saying it, which means that when you're not in the mirror, she's not going to make those choices. And what we want is for when she's alone in the mirror, for her to make those choices.
Yeah, because it's sort of like, she's also, when she's looking at me in the mirror, and I'm literally imagining that because for some reason we have these 3 massive mirrors right on our dinner table. It's really weird. She's not just seeing me in the mirror, but she's seeing my frustration and anger. And so any behavior now is going to be associated out of it's more out of compliance.
That's right.
Exactly. So she's going to want to please you, perhaps, and or comply with what you're saying.
Yeah.
But again, when she's in high school and she has the choice, you're not there.
Yeah.
She's going to make the choice. And what we want is the longevity, the long-term fix of how do we create a person who looks themselves in the mirror about all kinds of things, about all kinds of decisions. In particular, one type of decision is the things we put in our body, which, by the way, includes all these processed foods, but later on it includes drugs, alcohol, all kinds of other things. We want her to be able to look in the mirror and say, do I really want to do that? Is that who I want to be? Is that what I want to be? And not necessarily do it out of compliance. Because and I think that's what you're worried about, is if you step in and say non-negotiable, then you're going to hurt the relationship.
Yeah, and I am, because now, meal times, because this has been such a pattern, they are it's becoming associated with tension and anger and conflict.
Totally.
As opposed to times where we can come together and enjoy each other's company,
Yeah, and maybe even if we think of it more as mealtime as an opportunity to teach, but not necessarily in the teachy kind of way, right? So for example, in our meal times, we actually, when the kids were little, we used to build a model with think blocks at the table. So we have a dry erase board at our meal table. It's a dry erase table. It's a big table, bigger than this one, with dry erase. And we have blocks and stuff like that. And one of the things we taught our kids early on was mealtime is a part whole system. So let's call this family mealtime, FMT. And it's made up of a couple things. Do you remember
I do.
what they were?
The kids were actually, it was very useful.
Loved it.
So, and also we gave them the agency to help us figure out what should be on these blocks, what should be part of mealtime, right? And obviously their first answer was food,
Yep.
the actual food. We were trying to get other things across, and then we said also conversation.
Yep, so it always included conversation, because a lot of times what the kids would do is they'd be like, well, I'm done eating, it's
done.
over. And we'd say, whoa, that's just one part of family mealtime.
Yep.
But there's other parts. There's conversation, and then we had another part that was important.
Well, that was necessary, which became, it was manners.
Manners.
Right? And so they sort of, we led them to that as an important piece of it. And
There was one more
yes,
for us, yeah.
There was one more for us.
Which was love.
Which is love.
So it had 4 parts, and we used to hit on all those 4 parts.
And so now that gave us all a shared understanding of what mealtime meant for us as a family. It also had the effect of them being part of building that mental model and having some choice over what in here.
Yep.
Do you remember what we did with manners at that one point?
I'm not sure.
So manners became a little bit of a point of contention.
Yes.
And so what we actually did is we appointed each kid on a different day the manners police. So they got to call out their brother or their sister or one of us.
They loved that.
Which meant they were learning their manners by enforcing it for everybody else. Creating this together and then allowing a lot of creativity in how it's enforced, for lack of a better word, or operation.
So then you could zoom in to do a pothole of food.
Yes,
exactly. And you can also include it in conversation, which, by the way, this particular issue that you're bringing up is a big issue, one in the last few years that I've really taken a very personal interest in, because I think it's criminal what is happening in the world to kids and the way that they're being, quote unquote, fed.
Yeah.
And for all the same reasons that you brought up. And we have started making conversation at the table very much about food. And here's what's important is you can have that conversation not just with her. You can have it with your wife, or your wife can have it with you, so that that she's sitting there listening to the conversation of, wow, how much sugar is in this thing. And you could even get a can of sugar and have a plate, and it's amazing when you do it.
It is.
Right? Like last night we were with our grandkids, and they had a Gatorade, and it had 56 grams of sugar. Well, 56 grams of sugar, when you put raw sugar on a plate, is a crazy amount of sugar.
Yeah.
And I showed it to the parent, her mother, our child, and I said, would you hand them this plate of sugar? You'd never do that. You would never do that.
She said no.
And she said, no, of course I wouldn't do that. That would be terrible. And you know what? She has a similar problem with the bouncing around. Well, guess what? There's a relationship between the processed foods and the bouncing around.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you gave your child a bowl full of sugar at every meal, they're going to bounce around, and then they're going to crash, and then they're going to need more sugar. And this is the trap that parents are in.
Yes.
And
with all of the best intentions.
With all the best intentions, they're trying to solve it. What I'm saying is, if you try to solve this meal right now as a non-negotiable, it's going to blow up. But if you make it a long-term teachable moment, which is not always direct at her, it can be literally just, hey, as a family, we are learning more and more about what is good for us, and having more and more conversations about, oh my God, we actually have started a fam channel. It's called Famabama.
In our text.
In our texts. What I do is I just pepper it with social media posts that I find, because they love those. The kids love those.
They'll watch videos.
They'll watch videos, and it's not me saying it. It's some other guy showing it.
Yeah.
And I'll send them, look at this one, look at this one, look at this one. Like energy drinks is another one.
Yeah.
When they get older, same thing.
I'll just say he posted one about French fries about 4 months ago, and I've never eaten a French fry since.
Exactly.
I can't.
It's
it was
very
a microscopic
effective
thing about a French fry. Couldn't do it.
So if we shift again, it is non-negotiable. This is a health and safety risk for your child. So I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm disagreeing with you on the frame of it being this meal is problematic. This meal is an opportunity to teach the lesson.
Would a good analogy be this is a battle and this is the war?
Yeah, you want to win the war.
Yeah. It's like I need to. My perspective is I'm zoomed in on the plate as the non-negotiable. I need to zoom out and see 10 years as a non-negotiable.
You have 10 years to turn her into a person who looks in the mirror and says, that's not something I want to put in my body. And that's true for every one of the issues that you're going to have with her. I mean, that's true for everything that you are concerned about. It's about how do we raise a child to become an adult who has agency in the world to make good decisions for themselves, even when we're not around, especially when we're not around. Mm-hmm. And again, if you put yourself in the mirror, you don't want to create a situation where when you're in the mirror, they're just doing it to please you, because they will do that. And that's not the kind of child we want to raise. We want to raise a child that has their own agency and can go out in the world and make good decisions.
I think part of it is what you're talking about is your mental model, you being clear of it, you changing it, reframing it. But think about this. You have 10 years to build and evolve her mental model about food.
Yes.
What is healthy, what is not healthy, what her relationship with food is. And think about it, baby steps. Just change one thing at a time. And after a little bit, you'll see it happening and coalescing into a healthy lifestyle, healthy choices.
Yeah, the micro makes the macro. Fine, a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
Is this helping?
It's helping a lot. It's, I'm feeling a bit stunned by the power of that new perspective.
Yes.
I feel quite emotional actually, just realizing, I think that, honestly, that analogy of looking in the mirror thing is resonates a lot with me, actually. And
And what I would say is it's just gonna. I don't say this to be like what's the word, like
trite?
No.
I don't know where you're going.
To scare you or anything, but the stakes just get worse as they get older.
They do.
They get worse because as they get older, you're going to be dealing with vaping, and there's that whole vape industry that is trying to do this to kids, and energy drinks, which are literally killing kids, and they're trying to do it, and driving, and all these things that are deeply dangerous, and they are being influenced by these companies that have a vested interest in getting them to do things that are not good decisions. And I mean, billions and billions of dollars of vested interest in doing this, including social media, being on their phones all the time and things like that.
Yeah, but the nice thing is that this solves all of that.
It solves all of it.
Right? If your daughter, over time, and particularly before those things are risks for her, can build this sense of herself and her agency over her own choices, teenage years are going to be so much better.
Much easier.
Because they're hard.
They're hard.
They're hard.
They're hard because you're battling against all these systems that now see young people as a multi-trillion-dollar market.
Yes, 100%.
And that's the way they see them. That's the way they're leveraging them. And they're leveraging them against their best interests. And your job as a parent is their best interest. So you are in conflict with all these influences. Yeah. And the only way that you're going to be able to battle and win the war is to create that sense of agency in your child. That your child wants to look in the mirror and ask questions about themselves and have agency in their development and in their all their choices.
Thinking about this dynamic, one thing I meant to say earlier when you were talking about fear and hopelessness is I have found, so for example, actually maybe a week or so ago, one of my children thought I was very angry with them and said, "Are you really upset with me? What's going on? I'm sensing something." And I took a moment and I said, "Actually, I'm afraid." And I just communicated that what they were perceiving was based on my fear of concern for them.
Yeah.
And then it diffused that, and we connected at a very different level. And then we could have a more productive conversation and understanding around what the issue was. So even though your daughter's 8, she'll understand that. So I would try to expose that a little bit because she understands that your job is to take care of her. She can relate to that. And over time, that will get easier and easier.
There are many, many specific pragmatic things that you can do to manifest this. I mean, we're talking kind of somewhat abstractly. For example, if it's possible to include her in the shopping where she's having mommy or daddy time in the shopping, and the choices and reading the labels can be a whole game. Making fun with the way that when you read the labels, you can't even understand half of them.
Or you can't eat something you can't pronounce.
Yeah, exactly. Or just having fun with, can you even pronounce some of the words on here?
We did this with our kids when they were little. It was good.
Teaching them to shop the outer rim of the grocery store. Asking them questions like, why do you think that the aisle is full of stuff at 4 feet high?
That's all bad.
That's all bad for you. Why do you think that is? Like, start getting her to start asking those questions, and use the relationship of being with dad or being with mom to teach this lesson, whether it's at a restaurant or at the grocery store, or use gamification at meal times. I know it sounds kind of silly. We have a whiteboard for a dinner table.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, that doesn't meet my mid-century modern.
No, it doesn't.
It does not. You can't do that.
Our standards are a little lower for furniture.
Yeah. So, but it's because this kind of thing is so important, and you have so many opportunities if you can put your non-negotiable on the parenting timeline frame versus on the meal frame, because you're absolutely right. This is non-negotiable.
It just reminds me of your dynamics of how we tend to zoom in and not zoom out. And We have a bias to zoom in, not to zoom out.
That's right. You're getting locked in on that food, and it'll change. Believe it or not, it's not going to take 10 years. It's going to. I mean, you can change these things if you take an incremental approach and you're focused and you have a vision. You can change these things very quickly because you just pepper them with cool stuff.
Yeah, I like that.
You just pepper them with cool stuff.
Well, I also think involving in shopping, what is whole food, what isn't whole food, all of these things that we talk about, the relationship between food and if she plays sports or does gymnastics, the fuel, that fuel in your body. Like there's all kinds of things to build a mental model over time.
Get on TikTok and get your algorithm right, so you're getting all this nutrition stuff on TikTok that you can send to her if she's on TikTok.
Yeah.
Depending on when.
Yeah. Also, when they're
she
older,
gets a phone.
Ours started cooking. We taught them cooking, and cooking teaches them ingredients, and ingredients are very different, right? So that helps too.
What do you think?
Well, I think I'm feeling. I'm not feeling hopeless.
That's good.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
I feel a lot of relief is what I feel. So this has been very encouraging, to say the least.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, when we don't realize it, but when we react, we take away our ability to act, and that taking away that ability to act is taking away agency. And when we don't have agency, we lose hope. Mm-hmm. And that's why things can feel hopeless, because you feel like there's nothing I can do to make this better. It's so difficult. And if we can look in our own mirror about the reactions we're having and why, and being honest about it, like, this is definitely non-negotiable. I have to win this war, but it's the war I got to win, not the battle.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, okay, let's get the vision for the war. Let's start incremental peppering of all these kinds of things. And then all of a sudden you have a bogey-rich environment of opportunities.
Yes.
Like literally every single moment is an opportunity to put another chink in the armor on the war.
Make your wife a partner.
Yeah, your wife has to be a
crime.
partner. Absolutely.
You guys have to have the same vision, the same mental model. The same messaging, and it'll work. Yeah. It'll work.
It'll work a ton. And it'll take the pressure that is on your girl, because you can just talk to your wife about, I saw this article the other day, and it was all about how much sugar, the tobacco industry bought the food industry, and now they're using all these tobacco techniques to, drive the food industry. And your daughter's just sitting there listening.
Yeah.
It's not about you're directing at her. She's hearing a conversation. She's going, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Amazing. Okay, well, so that's your homework. This isn't going to get solved overnight, just like it's not going to get solved in one meal. The key to this whole thing is practice. Just start practicing, start coming up with ideas. We gave you a few ideas, like, sharing if she has a phone and is on social media yet, you can share that. If it's go to the store, if it's do stuff at dinner or at mealtime.
Start making the necessary connections subtly about her health and what's going in. And especially it'll be a little bit easier as she gets a little bit older. But right now you can start with the basics. Yeah. But it is a long game.
It's a long game. You got to play the long game. Parenting is a long game.
Thank you both.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope it was helpful. And, we hope also that people enjoyed this kind of episode.
Yes.
If you like this episode and you like the IRL approach, please let us know, and because we can do more of them.
Yes.
Or if you don't like it, then we'll do less of them. But if this is helpful to you to see how to kind of walk through a problem systemically, and some of the things that systems thinking can do to help with personal problems. We can do the same thing with professional problems and with societal problems and all kinds of different things.
And I would hazard a guess that most of the issues that most of us are facing, there are more than one of us, right? Every parent has had this struggle at some point in time.
And you also see, for example, that if you just change it from food to vaping, well, it's the same solution.
That's right.
If you change it from food to driving, dangerous driving behaviors, all the kinds of things that different parents are dealing with at different ages, you're going to see that there's a similar pattern to these kinds of behaviors and a similar approach to solve them.
So if in real life you have things you want to think about systemically, there are a couple ways you can do that. You can join training camp and reach out to us directly about something that you would like to talk through with us. You can also obviously comment inside whatever platform that you're listening to the podcast, but training camp's the way to go because you'll get us faster. And as I said, we learn from each other. We're all sharing the same struggles. So I want to thank our guest for coming on and sharing that.
Yes.
I think this will help a lot of parents of all age children. So I appreciate that very much. I think it's a great issue to bring to light.
I want to thank John
for
having the courage to share some things that are
easy.
pretty personal and not easy, not easy to deal with, and incredibly concerning and like causing sleepless nights and things like that.
We've been there.
On all parents.
Consider us on speed dial, John.
So with that, I think that's a wrap.
Be our next guest. If you're already on training camp, sign up. We'd love to help you think through whatever's on your mind, and others will learn from it. So don't be shy.